Well, they first need to decide why they want to protect their IP in China. I think there are two categories of clients, and there are two different types of strategies that I think should be employed. The first type of client would be the client that only wishes to use China as a manufacturing base in order to export products into other countries, including Australia. And the second type of client would be the client that would want to use China perhaps as a market, as a manufacturing base, but also as a market. I think there's two different types of clients with two different types of strategies. The first type of client, which is the client that only wishes to use China as a manufacturing base, I think all they need to do is bear in mind that when they seek to protect a brand in another jurisdiction such as Australia, that they should immediately protect that brand in China. And this is because China is a first to file country, which means that people that get their foot in the door first have the better position, whereas in other jurisdictions that is not necessarily the case. For those clients that wish to use China as a market, I think one needs to look at more how is your brand going to be received in China. Not every English brand has the same impact in the Chinese market, so I would be looking at getting specialist advice as to whether it makes sense to transliterate that mark into Chinese characters, and as you may know, that is not a simple process, and then looking at protecting that brand and perhaps also the English version of that brand. So it becomes a little bit more complex for those types of clients. The most important thing I think is don't underestimate the magnitude of the problem that you might find yourself in, because I think a lot of companies that establish their brands in the Australian market think that they should focus on Australia first. We have come across a number of problems that arise where containers coming out of China are stopped at the border because a third party might have secured rights to the identical brand and then hold the brand owner in Australia to ransom. That sort of thing does happen. It is a huge problem and it can cost a lot of money. So I think the additional expenditure for seeking to protect brands in China is really worth it, especially if you have any interest whatsoever in China. Now, there are many clients that do not have an interest in China, that do not wish to sell their wares in China, nor do they wish to manufacture in China, and I think in those cases it is okay to ignore the Chinese market at that point.